Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's FPV podcast. This week, we got a pilot that is multi-discipline, and that is what we call professional car racing and also FPV racing. He's kind of new to FPV, but he's already shown some skills. But before we get into all of that, Elvin, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Hope y'all all enjoying your weather and the times with your family. It's that important time of the year. And don't forget to get out there and get some flying in, man, because I am. Shit.
Definitely the holiday season, and we wish you all happy holidays because this is probably the last podcast before Christmas is over. But anyways, Gabby, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, what's up, guys? I am Gabby. I am obviously a big FPV enthusiast and big passion for it. I'm glad to be here with you guys. It's happy to come along, and thanks for the invitation.
Oh, welcome to the show, man. It's like Wyatt told me. He said, "Oh, you know who I met?" And I was like, "What? No. Oh, we got to get that guy on here, man. We got to get that guy on here."
Exactly.
Got a lot of good stuff to talk about.
So, for those of you who don't know, Gabby is a Indy car racer, racing professionally for how long, Gabby?
3 years professionally, but I have been racing for 14 years now.
14 years, so basically almost all of your life. So, as a way of getting started, can you tell us how you got into car racing and then eventually making that leap into professional Indy car racing?
Yeah, I started racing when I was 11 years old. In go-karts. A lot of the drivers start out in karting, and that's pretty much what I did until I was about 15 years old and made the jump to what we call like the junior series. It's kind of like your high school level competitions in open wheel racing, which is the discipline that I do in motorsports.
Yeah. No touch.
And then through that. Say that again. I'm sorry.
No touch.
No. Yeah. You still plenty of bumps.
Little bit.
Yeah, plenty. But usually
nothing to mess up no decals.
Yeah, the consequences are usually a little bit higher if we do touch in an open wheel car. But from there it was just trying to win the races, trying to win the championships, find a way to keep my career going. And you go from there to the college equivalent, of level of competition, and from there you do well enough, you get kind of scouted by one of the professional teams. So this is where I've been for 3 years.
Awesome, pretty cool. Now I gotta imagine, like being from Indianapolis, that the competition, even high school and college level, is pretty fierce because this is like definitely racing, estates over here. So what was it like trying to, climb that ladder? Was it like you had to be on it 24/7 and that was just your life for that duration of time?
Yeah, pretty much. And, the competition is, these are international series. So you got drivers not only from the States, but from all over the world. So you've got the best of the best kind of filtering all down together into one group. So you always have to be on top of your things. You got to, put in a lot of work, a lot of effort if you want to be successful. And, I've been lucky enough to have, the right tools in my career to progress and keep going, and been with the right teams at the right moments that have been able to give me championship winning cars, and I've been able to do that and go to to the pro level.
Okay, pretty cool. Now, once you got to the pros, what was it like? Was the jump like amazing, or was it like just a steady progression?
I would say that it was a little bit bigger of a gap than say high school to college, right? Because when you go to that second tier level, you're pretty much still racing against the guys that you've been racing before. We're all moving up constantly, almost together. But it's not until you get to the pro series that now all of a sudden you're going up against guys that have 10, 15 years more experience than you do. So that that was quite a gap to bridge. That was a bit more complicated than I anticipated. And obviously you adapt and you try to make up for that lack of experience by just trying to put in more work and more effort.
More time on the track, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
definitely
one
needed.
that's the one of the things that that coincides with FPV. You know, it's the putting the time on the track that's very important. And we find that the more that you fly, the less chances you make mistakes. Which is the same thing you're doing on the track. Is the more you drive, the faster you can go. You learn the car, and I say that point right there is you learn the car and you learn how to drive the car on each track as you practice, and that develops into your future of racing terminologies and techniques, and just makes you a more fluid, more faster pilot or driver, because a lot of this is very similar to racing quads, is very similar to racing cars. You have to understand momentum. You have to understand inertial energies, and how they play on each turn with deceleration and acceleration, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I see a lot of similarities, and I see, we're talking about getting that, track time, that stick time. I see a lot of guys that can go out there and they can rip one lap, whether it be on a race car or with a quad, then be absolutely blazing fast, but they cannot do it for the entire span of a full race. And all that comes down to is being practicing enough and putting in the repetition, not until you can do that one lap that fast, but until you can do the whole race at that speed.
Right.
And I think that's where these two sports, really bridge together is the way you get to your ultimate goal and ultimate result is very similar in what I mean is how you prepare yourself to get there and what it takes in terms of, call it track time or stick time, like we said before, the amount of hours you have to put into it so that it becomes really second nature.
Definitely. Now, Elvin, you actually have some training in terms of car racing, right? So why don't you tell us about your experience and compare that to, what you're seeing to FPV?
Well, I mean, because I grew up, racing in the streets of Hawaii, and then as I got out of that and started to grow up and become a grown man and carry a family along me, I decided to venture out and go to places and work in areas where I could have the opportunity to get some training on driving. Because, my parents both are high-speed car owners. My mom's a, Camaro woman, and my dad's a Corvette dude. And they've had various versions of those. So occasionally, I've seen plus 100 miles an hour in the backseat of a car, So that's kind of my drive for going fast, and so like I went to Arizona. I was out in Chandler working for a little while for a couple of years, and I decided to take Bondurant racing school classes. And we go out there and they teach you how to drive a car, and they teach you how to handle a car and skid. Basically, they put the car on rollers. And if you're driving a car and not using flow, is what we call it in drone racing. We call it flow, because if you have flow, you have speed. And if you're not using flow, then the car is uncontrollable, and that helps you learn how to control a car that may be more powerful than you're capable of handling. So I've gone to 2 years of that, and I really enjoyed that. And as I started racing drones, I started to adapt a lot of those techniques that, a lot of guys had no idea when I first started racing that you could do those things, because we were still at its infancy. You're right. So, and then now we're 5-6 years later, it's, for me, it's a positive thing to see racers taking to driver's techniques, it really excites me when I see someone that has driving skills adapt that to racing drones, because a lot of the techniques are the same. A lot of the practice regiments are the same. You have to learn how to slow down and accelerate, and then learn how to use inertia and momentum to help you through the whole course. And like he was saying earlier, a lot of guys out there can turn 2 or 3 fast laps, but they can't do it consecutively over and over. Now we have those pilots that are out there that do consecutive, and they're continuing to pop up out of nowhere at being a fast pilot because they don't make mistakes. And that's what practice entitles. And Gabby Chaves is one of those driver pilots that understands that, and that I'm looking forward to seeing where he's going to end up next year, somewhere on somebody's podium. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, definitely. So let's go ahead, since we have Gabby here and we can actually talk about some racing lines. Let's break down some of the interesting parts of like a racing. So right, it's really broken down to 2 things, right? You have your straightaways and then you have your turning. Most people agree, like in FPV, the turns are where you win the races, because everybody's quads in the straightaways are fast. Okay, unless you hit a gate, which does happen, you're probably going to be fast in the straightaways. So let's talk about, the thought process of like, how you get around a turn. So Gabby, when you like just a standard turn, right? Like a 180. So you come in one direction, you get a nice sweeping turn, and then you go into the other direction. What are you thinking about when you actually try to tackle a turn the first time you see it?
To me, it comes down to two simple things, and that is speed and distance. And really, it's about finding that fine relationship of what is the absolute fastest speed you can take that corner at, and then the absolute shortest distance that you can achieve that speed. For example, you talk about 180. Well, I can make the 180 at 90 mile an hour wide open, but I bet you that radius is going to be pretty damn wide, and it's going to be a very, very long way around, the corner. It's going to take me a lot of distance to make that 2 hour. Maybe I cut that speed down to, say, 60 mile an hour, 50 mile an hour in the corner, but I make my radius a lot smaller, a lot tighter, and now I've gained distance. I've been more efficient with my battery, so now I've saved battery, and let's call it, if it's a wash, let's call it they both make the same split, from point A to point B. They're both they both take 5 seconds, whatever you want to call it. But one way is a lot more efficient and a lot smoother, that you can do lap after lap after lap.
Right.
Now, the trick is to finding the absolute fastest way to do that. Not speed, not distance, but the best combination of both to achieve that. And that's the mentality and the philosophy in car racing. So, a lot of the sayings like slow in, fast out, although it doesn't necessarily apply in exactly the same way to racing a drone, it's very similar in the way, like you were talking about, use the momentum. And here you're dealing with a different, kind of like that third element, right? You have 3 dimensions, and you have thrust, and so there's a lot of things that do change, but the objective is still the same, which is how fast can you take the corner, and what's the absolute shortest distance you can manage it at to have the fastest time.
Right. And that's actually...
And can you do it consecutively over and over and over and over?
To do that, for a full pack of battery, right? Not just one time.
Now I got a question for you. Do you go out, like for me, like when I'm racing, right? My goal is to go out and figure out what the track is, right? It's like I sit down with it and I go, okay, we come up to turn 1 left, turn 2 right, turn 3 left, turn 4 right, turn 5 right, left, like that through the whole process till I got it in my head, till I can see it as I'm I'm starting to take off. I don't have to remember it anymore. I don't have to look down at the map anymore. I got it locked in. Are you one of those like that guy, or do you have a different technique?
So my approach in a race car, I would say, yes, it's about, being able to, to do the track with your eyes closed, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can do it by instinct and by, just by memory, that kind of timing that exactly when to turn, when to brake, when to accelerate, and then it just becomes kind of a habit, and you're just constantly trying to push a little bit more each lap until you find the limit of your race car and of the track.
Right.
And in flying, because everything happens a little bit quicker, right? I think that, the scaled speed of how small a quad is and how fast you're moving, through the air, the scaled speed's got to be a lot higher. So you don't have the time to really think one corner at a time. So I've been trying to adjust my mentality when I approach a drone track, in where I'm just trying to, I'm not making, let's say in a 12-turn track, I'm not trying to make 12 turns. I'm trying to make one smooth turn that connects the whole track. And I'm saying this because that's what I feel the top pilots are doing. That's what I think I'm seeing when I watch them. And that is the theory that I think would work best based on my experience in racing cars. Now, I'm not there yet, right? I'm fairly new to the sport, to the hobby. So that is what I'm trying to achieve, but I'm by no means there yet.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to go back to one point, and I think it's one that a lot of pilots lack in understanding, is that when you take a turn, and let's say that you find two paths that are equally as fast, but one of them is more efficient, that's actually more important, because after a hard turn it's usually a straightaway, right? If you're maxing out your amps going through that turn, that battery is going to give on you. It's eventually going to sag. I'm sorry to say, there's a lot of batteries that says it can do max amps for 30 seconds. I've never seen a battery do max amps for 30 seconds, okay? I've seen a battery do maybe 5, okay? After that, I'm sorry, that battery's going to be like, it's either going to be on fire or it's going to sag on you. There's only 2 ways it's going to go. So taking the turn more efficiently that achieves the same time, or even a little bit less, the outcome will be better, because those are the guys that will have the power to go faster in the straightaways.
And that last lap, they accelerate past you.
Absolutely. And a lot of people ask me, when they're asking me when we're racing, and like I said, I'm not fully there yet on my theory, or not my theory, my approach. I'm not fully there to where I can apply my approach to flying yet, but I feel like every time I go out and fly, I get a step closer to it. But a lot of guys ask me, so what battery are you using, and, what capacity battery are you using? And a lot of the times they're really surprised when I'm telling them I'm using a 1300 pack. I'm having absolutely zero issues on finishing a 2-minute race on 2650 kV motors. They're going, what? I just crashed out of the sky on a 1550 pack on less kV and a less aggressive prop. So, it shows, it goes to show that not only are you making a more efficient line, but hey, guess what? Now you can use a smaller battery. You can use punchier motors. Right. And so you're saving weight, you're becoming more efficient, and you're still achieving the same or faster lap time.
Well, we just went to a big race in the mega caves, the caves in Megadrone, and we watched a lot of guys fall out of the sky in the last lap. Man, it was like a couple of I think two races. Most of the guys that fell out of the air on before the last, and there was actually 2 laps done after everybody else had fell out of the air, because those 2 guys were running super efficient setup. So in the end, they won because they didn't push it as hard as everybody else. They had energy to finish, where everybody else were you see guys going around the corner, you watching 4S batteries drop down to nine volts.
It's bad. It's like, oh man, it's like somebody's making a lot of money making batteries. That's all I'm gonna say.
Right. Yeah.
For batteries.
But that
But,
is
you know,
that
ahead,
is
Why?
the jump. It's like I'm sorry to say this is kind of like a pet peeve of mine. Is that what we're doing is we're lowering the bar on how technical the race can be by lowering the times on the track, when we should still keep that standard and make everybody understand that efficiency is part of the calculation in terms of
Yes.
going fast. That's the next level. Like, Gabby, you're there in terms of understanding that because of your professional race car background, but a lot of people don't see that part of it. They're saying, "Oh, my battery's running dead. We need, a minute 30
Bigger
seconds
batteries.
or bigger batteries, or a minute 30 seconds to run a race." It's like those things don't equal out.
Exactly right. I think, if you want to go fast, you want to put a big battery, you want to put giant motors, do it, and then go run a UTT. That's what it's there for, right?
Right.
But why are we shortening races? When that's taking out strategy out of the race.
Right.
And even if the smoothest and most efficient pilot isn't being able to finish the race, well, hey, now everyone's got a challenge. Now you got to think a little bit. Now you got to change your setup and adapt. And I think that should be part of it. I think that's part of the fun and part of the competition. It's about being able to be the best overall, and not just about one lap who's the fastest, right?
Right. A lot of I like racing. You know what I mean? I like all aspects of the racing part. So like, when I go to a race, I take props of two different calibers. You know what I mean? There's, I take a low profile prop and then a high profile prop. The high profile prop is usually shorter than the low profile prop. You know what I mean? So I might, there was some times when I would take 5.5-inch props to a race, instead of 5-inch props, and reduce the, when I used to fly HQs, that's how I regulated the performance of my motors, and it helped me stay efficient. Like I've never fallen out of the sky in a race, just not finished all the time.
Well, that's a good segue to like the second subject. So like other car racing, right? The track is there as a guide to make sure that everybody follows the same pace. In drone racing, we put gates in the where to be annoying to you and to tell you where to fly, because let's face it, like in a lot of races, the gate is what really gets you onto the ground, right? Because you're trying to push your speed, and then there's this big something in the way, and you hit it. So in your practice with, or during racing, is there an approach that you do for gates? Because most people like to go right down the center, which is great, except when 6 other people are trying to go straight down the center, and that becomes an issue.
Okay, I think I lost you there for a second, but I think I know exactly. I know. I'm pretty sure I know the question, which is my approach on going through a gate, and really, and this I can tie pretty much to car racing as well, which is the approach. Let's call it gate number 2 starts before you go through gate number 1. Right. And it's all about, even before you're going through that gate that's right ahead of you, you want to be set up for the one that comes after. If you can do that, you have no issues in hitting your gates, because you're not adjusting for that specific one you're about to hit. You're already adjusting for 1 or 2 ahead. Right. And then we go again to the same thing. Now you're connecting your lines better, you're being smoother. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the way that I've been able to improve at a quicker rate, is by trying to apply that mentality, which is, don't think of the gate ahead of you, think of the one after that. Right. And again, it comes down to watching the more experienced pilots do it. And when I see them fly, a lot of them, I see them and they're going through some gates, almost sideways, not even looking at the gate. They're looking at the next one already.
Right.
So that makes perfect sense to me. If you're already set up for the gate that's right ahead of you, you don't need to do anything. You're already going to go through it, and you're just setting up for the next one. And it's just, it just keeps going after that.
I can tell you this, Gabby. It's over time. What happens is you notice, like at the last race we were at, there was a lot of air collisions, right? There's a lot of guys that have similar styles. They train very similar, and here's an advantage you have with understanding car racing that goes over that is you learn how to pass someone on the inside of the corner and the outside of the corner. That's one of the things that I notice there's not a lot of in this. So you got 4 guys trying to fight for the center line through a gate, right? And they're all fighting for the same center line, and only one of them can be in that spot, right? And when 4 of them bunch up in a corner, usually 2 of them go down because they end up hitting each other, because they're all fighting for that same corner. Do you implement the fact that sometimes you need to be high in the right, sometimes you need to be low in the bottom, right, of a gate, and it's not always the optimal turn position or a position to go into the turn, but it's the safest to come out of the turn. You know what I mean? Because that there's 2 other guys that like to pass in the corners, and they all fight for the center. That's. Are you paying attention to those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a certain point, sometimes it's impossible to gauge, because sometimes you can't even see them, right? You're still dealing with ancient video, right? So sometimes it's
gotten way better, believe me.
Yeah, but sometimes it's out of your control. Sometimes there's nothing you can do. But if you know that you are in a position where you are fighting for the same real estate with 2 or 3 other quads in the air, then that's where a little bit of in car racing, it's called racecraft. And there's how you manage the situations with traffic, with overtaking, with defending. And I think, we're starting to see some of the top pilots really develop that racecraft where you know how to handle the situation. For example, like about a month ago, I was racing, and this guy kept passing me all the time. He was taking a better, shorter line around a split S, and he would pass me, and then I'd pass him on the exit, and we come up to the last lap, and he'd been passing me the last 3 laps at the same spot. So that's where that experience that I've had in car racing came in. Well, all I did was I slowed down a little bit earlier, and I made my split S really tight. Well, he's got no way around it now, right? Unless we both crash out. Right. And so I think that you'll see a lot of the top guys and a lot of the new guys that are starting to race eventually pick up on that and develop those racing skills, not so much about speed and being smooth and efficient, but it's really about that situational awareness and how to overtake, how to defend, and how to manage traffic. Obviously, it's a lot harder. Like I said, sometimes there's just no way. You just can't see well enough to make those decisions, and especially at the speed and distance that we're traveling, right?
Right.
But when you're in a position that you can make a decision, it's gonna, you're gonna have the top pilots who do that. They're gonna be the ones winning the races.
Definitely.
Well, I can tell you that like over the last year, there's some pilots out there that have that skill, and one of them's name is Gab. You got to watch out for him, homie.
That's funny.
I watch a bunch of your races, and you definitely have some talent, and I see some other showcase skills coming into that play too. So, I think, but you got to watch out for those natural pilots. There's a couple of guys out there that are just naturals, and they understand aeronautics, and they don't even know what they're talking about half the time. You get them on the track, and they show you stuff. You know what I mean? They don't have the technical background that you have. I mean, when it comes to racing, they don't understand, what all these things are. They just know how to have a clean line and fly fast. And they enjoy doing it. So they tend to push a little harder, a little faster, a little longer than most of the guys. And they are efficient nuts, so you got to watch out for those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Fun fact, Gab 707, which he was talking about, he was also a karting nerd when he was young. So that's where he gets his racing background from. But let's go ahead and, well, actually, I have one more question before we move on to the next segment, and that's the launch, because one of the most important things is the launch or the start of the aircraft, the whole shot, or sometimes just don't crash part. I'm serious. There's a lot of crashing at the very beginning.
Oh, we know.
So do you have a strategy in terms of the launch, at the very start of the race? Because it's one of the most critical spots in terms of getting your position throughout the race.
Right.
Yeah, it really is. And it could set you up for failure or for victory, right? If you've got a clean track ahead of you, you race your line and, you let the guys behind you battle it out. If you don't get a good launch, now you've got to think about how to overtake the guys without falling out of the sky, right?
True.
That's something that I have been practicing a lot, because at the beginning when I first started getting into racing, I was just trying to get quick. I was just trying to improve, and I neglected, the starts. Well, now that I'm starting to get competitive enough to race with some of the pretty good guys out there, and I can keep up with them and I can race with them. Well, now I started getting destroyed on the starts, right? So, all right, well, come back home, and I'm going to do this every day until I feel that I'm getting it just as good, if not better than all those guys. And not only, once every 3 tries, but every single try that I do.
Right.
A lot of that is just practice and just being able to put in the work, put in the repetitions, and just do that. And, I don't think there is a perfect technique to doing it. Everyone will find what works best for them. But it's something that I don't see a lot of guys doing. And, the guys that do it, they have an immediate advantage over the whole field.
Definitely. So is your strategy always go for that first position? Do you ever hold back when it comes to launching?
Oh, no. I mean, not in the past 2 months that I've been kind of really putting a lot of effort into racing. It's every time I start, it's full throttle until I need, until the first gate, right? And if it's a straightaway, it's full throttle through the first gate if I can make it. So yeah, I've been putting a lot of effort into that, and I've been having, a little bit more success in my races because I usually tend to get one of the, the whole shot or be right up there with the first guy, right? And then that sets you up just for a cleaner race, and your visual is a lot better. You don't have any traffic in front of you. You don't have to deal or think about that. Just sets you up for a cleaner and smoother race ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So, hey,
cleaner air.
Yep, some good racing talk for all you racing junkies out there. Definitely can learn a lot from each other when it comes to racing. Having a good, technical background does help, because if you're already fast, knowing nothing, you can only get better when you know something about your craft. That's how it works. Okay.
And like he said, I mean, it's racecraft. That's what we called it. Growing up, you learn. You develop your own style. You develop your own skills. There's, me. I like to bump people in the corners. It's just what I used to do. I mean, if I get you in the corner at the right, you on the wrong angle, man, you done. the race is over because once I get in front of you, I'm gonna block you all day long, But that's that's the old days, I mean, now we doing these things in the air, and we race. A lot of guys don't have the technical skills. Unfortunately, a lot of the pilots that do have the technical skills are not heavy racers. You know what I mean? They have other things that drive them and push them in a different direction. But I think having any type of racing background, especially a technical one, has a bonus when you're racing. I mean, it's just like having a sports background when you play sports. I mean, running soccer, football, depending on whichever one you decide to want to use, it's basically the same thing. You're running, you gotta exercise, you gotta learn, the plays, you gotta learn how to communicate with the other drivers or pilots or teammates, and having the technicalities, knowing the words to use, the proper words to use, it helps you when you're transferring information. Or it's like I tell a lot of guys, you got to go out and read that manual because I read it. And if I read it, then other pilots have read it or other drivers have read it. And when we're talking and we're making comments, we're talking about what we learned and what we can reference together, right? And those things, those books that I've read, the driving books, when you talk about road feel, I know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about it in Colombian, Spanish, or Chinese. It's all the same, thought process. You know what I mean? How to tackle those things, because we've all kind of learned those same aspects or the references.
Right. Yeah, I understand exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's move on to the next part of the segment. Otherwise, we'll be here forever, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time here. So, obviously, IndyCar is your.
I just want to say, man, it's good for you to see you adapt this, because I think this is a big part of racing for what we've been doing.
Yeah, Gabby's Gabby's school of drone racing will be open in 2018. No, I'm kidding. Oh my gosh. Anyways, so let's go on to like FPV racing goals, because obviously IndyCar is your bread and butter. That's actually how you pay the bills, and this is more of a, for everybody, an expensive hobby. It's just how it is right now. So for obviously 2017, that's almost over. You're still really learning. You started in May. Well, actually, you've been racing or flying for a year, but you really only been racing since May, as we talked about a little bit earlier before the podcast. So what are your racing goals for 2018 moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, really, just back up a little bit, for me this year, 2017, and was kind of just trying out the water, and making sure that it was something that I really wanted to pursue, and that I wanted, and that I was passionate about doing, which I definitely am. I knew that before I even tried it, but I just wanted to make sure, because right. I was just kind of flying and having fun with it, a little freestyle here and there. And I got the invitation to go to the International Open. I think it was in August. So I started flying a month and a half before that, just practicing a little bit. And I just got bit by that racing bug, and just haven't, I haven't stopped. So next year, I think is when I'll really put my skills and my progression to the test. And I'll try to find some more important events where I can really go up against the best of the best and see where I stack up. I have absolutely no expectations. I don't know where I'll be. I know that, I've been flying and practicing with some, pretty competitive pilots, and I have an idea of how well I can do. I know what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are. And I know that every time I get on the track, I'm improving. So there's still, a lot of time for a lot of improvement for me, to really go after my thoughts and the way I want to apply my flying into a track.
Mhm.
And I think the best opportunity for me with my schedule next year will definitely be at International Open once again. So that'll probably be my goal, is to put in as much work as the time will allow me to get better and to improve and see how I can do there.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it's one of those things where like that's why you race, It's that you want to go up against the best and you see where your shortcomings are and then you get better. It's the only way to do
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's an interesting achievement and it's also an interesting goal because like right now at this time, if you're following drone racing, we're seeing the transitionary period. The old guard is starting to move out and the new guard's starting to move in because like these young kids, man, like every month I'm seeing these young kids. They're so fast and they are
Yeah.
like they have no real formal training, but you put some sticks in his hands and like he can go fast. He might drop out of
Yeah,
the air.
but then there's those that have some formal training.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, that.
we've there's a couple of young guys out there that are under 15 that have some pure talent, but they also have great father coaches.
Mentors. Yep.
Yeah, man. It's watching that is part of the racing. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. And it's that thing that we talk about. How do we get an audience to watch drone racing? You know what I mean? It's how do you do that? Well, first you get a couple of guys like Gabby Chaves and a couple of young kids on a team or on in a race, and you play them against each other. You know what I mean? And let them do the showcasing. You know what I mean? And that's how you draw people in. And as this father and son team coach thing that's starting to happen now is starting to look pretty interesting, man.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I've seen it with some of the younger guys that are incredibly fast. And I think a little bit, with why I'm so drawn to drone racing is because it takes me back to my first years when I was starting to race go-karts, and I was with my dad at the track and my mechanic and, the guys that mentored me, and is, just being able to kind of, it's almost like going back in time. How many of us haven't said like, oh, you know what? I know when I was there, I hated it, but I kind of wish I could go back to my senior year in high school and just relive it because it was a blast, right?
Right.
I'm kind of living through that again with drone racing because,
nice.
but with the experience of already having raced all my life, right?
Right.
So it's kind of, you reignite that passion and you start over and you get to maybe enjoy it a little bit more and apply some of the things that you didn't do the first time around, right? So I think that's why I am so wrapped and impassioned by FPV racing right now, is because it's like I'm restarting, something that I love to do, but already with the experience. So it's just great.
And see, look at this. This is not fair. No, I'm kidding. It's a lot of fun. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, racing is racing. It's like you just find different alternatives to it. There's just so much out there in the world. It's just that this one, okay, so FPV racing is significantly more cheaper than anything that you have to get into and put gas in. So it is definitely one of those things. So if you want to go fast and be safe, this is the sport to get into, okay?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You get into a vehicle, hands off, all bets are off.
Yeah, because you're in the cars that are 700 horsepower plus, right? 550 to 700, depending on what the boost is, right? So I mean, you can shake yourself pretty good.
Yeah, you certainly can.
Okay. Side note.
Come home with a little headache.
Since we're on this subject and I'm easily distracted, what is the most gnarly crash that you've been in, Gabby?
Um, thankfully, I haven't been in many wrecks, especially not big ones. And actually, probably the biggest one that I've been, the one that's shaken me up the most, has actually been in a go-kart, probably 60 miles an hour, and not in an Indy car at 230. A lot of doesn't really make sense, but it's the truth. You really, the impact, that I took, basically hit a tree, a standing tree, right, in a go-kart at 60 miles an hour, and I got launched off. I mean, that's something that I've never felt before. You're basically just a passenger, and
Right.
it's just a big hit.
Just
I've taken
remember,
some.
Tucker, pull your hands in. Pull your hands. I remember my coach telling, he said, if you ever leave the car, grab yourself. That's what he said. He said, grab yourself and hold on, because that's very important.
We do that. So in an Indy car, we don't have any assisted steering or anything like some of the other racing series do. And when you hit a wall, if you hit a wall at 200 miles an hour, the force of the impact will right away break the suspension, and and you don't know what that steering wheel is going to do. So a lot of drivers, we used to get a lot of wrist injuries and arm injuries because you'd be holding onto the wheel, and well, it would snap your hands, right?
Right.
So that's exactly right. We're trying to have the younger guys learn, and a lot of the more experienced guys have even told me, anytime you're in a situation where you're going to crash, hands off the wheel, hold your belts, and that'll hopefully save a wrist.
Right. Save your wrists, your arms, your elbows. Yeah. Dislocations suck.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Be safe out there.
I popped this one twice, so.
Yeah, definitely. All I can say is that, like, when we watch Indy car racing, NASCAR racing, how a professional takes a crash and how a normal person takes a crash, it's like polar opposites. Like, they're like, right. I know, I understand that the car is doing some gnarly things around him, but he's kind of like looking around saying, where am I going to end up? It's like he has this like serene face.
That direction.
It's like, okay, this is going to stop pretty soon. It's like, okay. And then like they get out of the car. I'm like, you just hit that, right? It's like, it's crazy. Professional.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. I think the adrenaline takes over a lot of the times. And if you're lucky enough to be conscious, through after the impact,
right?
You're probably already thinking about, your plan to get out of there. A lot of the times it'll result in a fire, or you're upside down, or you're heading, towards a lake. So if you're lucky enough to be
and you're still strapped in,
yeah, you already got to be thinking of your exit strategy.
All right, we'll move on to happier things. Thank you for talking to us about that.
Yeah, no problem.
You know what? Hey, we all want everybody to be safe and to walk away from in or out of their cars or something like that. But let's.
There's a lot of money. I mean, like what I was saying earlier, there's a lot of money in Indy car racing. What was it? I think the fees last year for just engines alone was like $1.1 million or something like that. That's holy crap, guys. $1.1 million for motors.
That's a lease, by the way. That doesn't buy you anything. You just buy the right to use the engine for the year.
That don't get you nothing.
That don't get you nothing. You don't even own it, but you get to use it.
Thank you. You got some more?
Broke this one. Can you fix it? All right. Personal goals aside. Definitely going to be interested to see you racing in 2018. Now, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about your personal preference in terms of the gear that you use, because that is very highly, it's preferential in terms of what people like. So in terms of gear, what do you like to use and what have you seen works best out there? Because there's tons of stuff out there.
Oh, yeah, certainly. And I've seen everything work. And, I've seen very ultralight, builds work. I've seen heavier builds work, and I think it just comes down to what feels comfortable for you. And, the way I build my quads for racing specifically is just the same mentality that I would if I was building a race car. And that's, it's going to be control over power, and the lighter it is, the better it's going to feel for me. And high RPMs, of course, right? Who doesn't love high revving motors, right? So I generally tend to use higher KV motors. 2600 and up is probably what I have. I don't think I've got a motor on my bench that's under 2500 KV.
Wow.
I love that. I love the feeling of control that it gives you. I've actually been lucky enough to hook up with a company like Catalyst Machine Works, who are, I'm a team pilot for them, and they're sponsoring my frames and some equipment, so I get to fly some of the best equipment out there as well, and made some great relationships. So also been lucky enough to join up with Team Spectrum and have fun with those guys and their great radios and equipment. So I'm just enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, and I love that every time I can build a quad, it's something that's personal, right? It's not, I'm not going out there and it's not like you're going out there and you're buying a BMW that everyone's going to have the same exact model, right?
Right.
This is something that you're building to your exact specification, exactly how you want it for you. And that's something that is so unique to drone racing, because you could do that in car racing, but it's going to take you millions and millions of dollars. It's something you can go out there and you can,
right? You're talking about the feel.
And you can do this for $200-300, and you've got something that is unique to you 100%. So I love that about drone racing and about the technical side of it.
Cool. So any specific cameras and like antennas that you like to use? Because I'm sure you've probably run the gamut of cameras and antennas.
Yeah. So, coming back to, I'd like to build my stuff light. So I've been recently using all the Runcam micros. And I pair that with the Axie, UFL Axie. So, I shave a couple grams there. And something I've noticed is as my equipment gets lighter, I tend to survive crashes a lot more. And I mean, obviously that's obvious physics, right?
Right.
Something lighter is not going to have as much energy in an impact as something heavier. But I didn't think it would make such a big difference as I've seen it do. So that's probably something I'll keep doing and try to keep heading in that direction.
Cool. Are you finding that you like the smaller crafts, like like instead of going 5 inches, you're going smaller 4 inches? There's been a trend in which like people are actually, even when 5 inches or 6 inches is available, they're still opting to go to a smaller quad for the lighter weight, for the more efficiencies, the little bumblebee effect right there.
So it's almost like a two-part answer. Yes and no. I find that the lighter weight is good, but only if you have the stability to go along with it. So, funny story, what I've been doing, and I actually did this at my last indoor race, was I took my lightest 5-inch quad, which is about 210 grams all up with props, and it's they're not very powerful motors, they're 2205 motors, but relatively high KV. And I actually just put some 4-inch props on it. So it wasn't the lightest 4-inch setup that you could have, but I had a little bit of both. I had, the 4-inch agility with the stability of a 5-inch quad, which just to me was amazing. It was the first time I tried something like this. And although I'm pretty sure I could not match the lap time I could do maybe with 5-inch props, I could do this for 15 laps in a row,
Right.
just so consistent and pushing 100% of my abilities.
Right.
Where on a faster setup, it's just hard to be consistent. You can maybe do that one lap that's a little bit quicker, but I couldn't do it every time. So that's something that so yes and no. It's a yes and no answer. I like the idea of it, but I think, like I said before, I'm trying to, for me, it's going to be control over power is what's going to drive my personal preference for my style of flying to get a better result.
I'm very similar to that, I would say.
No, you're not. You love power.
Damn, I've
seen your videos.
Man. I was trying to lie, man.
He's a drag racer at heart. Okay, that's what he is. He's a drag racer at heart.
I am a drag racer at heart. I just like there's mornings I get up at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, dude, and I'm like, I just want to go downtown. I just want to go past the courthouse at about 90 miles an hour in a quad, and just go past a cop and go, just to see what that look on his face is like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hell. Anyway.
Absolutely. No, I love speed too, man. I've got some 6S builds capable of even more that, I love just watching it line of sight, and it's just, it fascinates me. It never ceases to impress me how fast, a thing this big can go.
Yeah.
And I still don't understand how we can control it and how the technology is to where it is and where it will be in a few years to where, all the things we can do with something that's moving, over 100 miles an hour. It just fascinates me at how big it is. And
the speed definitely still gets me.
It's amazing to see. So yeah, I understand it. I love just full out just speed builds. That is a lot of fun too.
Yeah, like I built one of these for a 4S setup, and it's 2.5 inch, the EMAX stack with 1106s on it, 6,000 KVs, and it's freaking fast, dude. Oh, yeah. But like I told my friend, I said it's still half the size of my other ship. My other ship is smoking. You know what I mean? It's just the bigger one travels further, faster, longer, and it's just it doesn't seem as if I'm lagging behind. Like I take off in this thing and it's like wee, where my 5 inch is like wow, it went down the street and around the corner. You're like, oh shit, I'm around the block, Well, with this thing is like, I'm going down the block. Wee, Yeah. But I think, a lot of the racing stuff is speed is good. That's why we have different types of racing. We have drag racing, we have auto, sprint car racing, we have Indy series racing, NASCAR, all these different types of racing. And there's all of them have their different perspective, skills, or disciplines, or personifications of the disciplines, right? Some people think that, because you're doing NASCAR, it's left turn, left turn, left turn, left turn, you know what I mean, all day. But it's not always that, you know what I mean? It's not always right turn, right turn. Like I did some RC car running when I was younger. So there's left turn and right turn cars, you know what I mean? And a lot of people don't know that some of those cars, left turn cars, are designed for left car only tracks. You know what I mean? There's certain tracks for that. So just like there's certain tracks designed for Indy cars and certain tracks designed for, the F1 series, it's different types of racing with different types of personalities behind those skill sets. And that's what makes racing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. Which, by the way, leads me to a different point that we're not going to have time to discuss, which is there needs to be different formats for drone racing because the number of pilots that we have and we only champion 3 winners, that's kind of bullshit. We need more different types of racing. I'm just going to say that right now. I'll leave that out there. But last thing I'll talk to you about, and then we'll wrap up for real, is ground stations. I know you like Clearview. Tell us why you like Clearview.
I mean, I know the ground stations, Clearview, all that stuff. I know it's expensive, and it's just something that I heard so many good things about. I had to try it for myself. I tried one of my buddies had one, and I tried it, and it's been probably one of the best investments that I've made for drone racing. It's just You know, there's nothing more frustrating than being in the middle of a race, you're having a good race, and you're out because of a video issue. And I think just, by running the Clearview, I've kind of eliminated a lot of that risk, and I've been able to have, very consistent video feed throughout every race that I've done with it so far. And, whether it's an advantage or not, I don't know. I mean, probably is, depending on the location. But you just have that peace of mind to where you can just, almost forget about, it's just one less thing to worry about. And you just know that your video is going to be there, and you can just concentrate on your flying.
Definitely. And
Awesome.
it's one of the more expensive ground stations out there, because we're talking like $40 for a pretty good one to $300. Okay.
But
What?
it just came out. They're coming out with a module. They're coming
Still
out with a
$250.
Clearview
That's right.
module.
Which I was a little bit upset about, because I bought mine probably a week before the module was announced, right? And of course, it's not only the form factor, but of course, it's like $100 cheaper than the one I bought. So
Right.
there's also that,
All right.
it is what it is. I am secretly hoping that it's not as good, so I can justify my money.
That's all right.
Oh, man.
Your big ground station can be your backup, right? Anything important, you should always have a backup. That's
Right,
what I say.
Always.
It doesn't always work, unfortunately. But yes, it does suck. It's like you buy something, and then all of a sudden, magically, something else better comes along. It's like, crap.
It always does, yeah.
It always
Yeah.
does. Well,
Man.
Gabby, it was great talking to you. Learned a lot. It's a great conversation. We're definitely going to try to get you on for 2018, see how you're progressing along, and see if you're achieving your goals that you're setting out. Obviously, with this being a secondary, racing title that you're trying to achieve, it might be hard. I'm just saying,
He's got
there's a lot
of titles. I mean, really, when you look at it, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, come on now. Those, if you guys go look up Gabby Chaves, I mean, he's like got kart titles out the yin yang. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm just like, I guarantee you, like, if I ever see this guy up close, I'm getting him to sign my hat, my shirt, because I, I mean, damn, dude, you're impressive. I mean, you're one of those drivers. Like, I get excited. Like, I got excited around Mario Andretti when I was younger. I mean, that was like, wow, I'm in the presence of a great driver. You know what I mean? And and Earlhart and stuff like that. And you got that kind of pedigree driving. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it's just phenomenal to know that you racing and to see, what options open up for you. You know, I mean, it's a very, there's not a lot of pilots out here that have the technical background you have, and you've done it. You're comfortable behind the mic. You're comfortable in the wheel. You got a hot girlfriend. I mean, that don't have, like, that drone racing, that don't even work.
All right, we're cutting there. You can stop sucking up now. All right, Gabby.
Man.
Can you please tell us your social media accounts for anybody who wants to follow you and get in touch with you?
Follow him.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter. It is at Gabby Chaves. That's GabbyChaves. It is the same on Facebook. I have an athlete page on Facebook for all my racing stuff. Instagram, it is also at Gabby Chaves. And of course, I recently started a YouTube channel that's dedicated just for my FPV stuff. And that is GC, so my initials, GC Cannonball, as a pilot handle. So it's on there. I try to update it and try to keep up with everything. And of course, thanks guys for having me. I enjoyed it. It's been a great ride, starting flying and racing, and really enjoying it. And it's a great passion. So I'm happy to be involved. I'm very happy to meet people like you guys and a lot of the friends that I've made so far. And I look forward to next year.
Yeah, definitely. And I completely forgot to ask you about how you got your call sign Cannonball, but we'll do that next time in the next podcast. And also, Gabby, like, get more of your karting friends over on the drone racing side. Come on, we need more of you over here.
I got a few of them already, so we got to hit up some races together. But
don't turn Tom and them into car racers. Don't turn that. Don't turn.
Hey, more racing the better. All right, man. Thank you so much for joining us, and we are done for the week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man.